Hello, church family. Welcome to today's Sunday school lesson. We are in session 8 entitled Protect, and our key idea this week is all people are to value all human life. And we're in Genesis chapter 9, verses 1 through 15. And we're going to start off by asking the question, what would our world look like if all people valued every human life? Well, if everyone valued human life, there would be a lot less death. There would be a lot less needless death as well. Um, we have a priority historically to devalue the lives and the personhood of other people. We will never see, because of sin, we will never see other people as important as ourselves, or people who are different than us and those that we love. They're different than us. They are less than human a lot of times. So this can also be based on prejudice, based on the color of skin or sexual preference um, or ethnicity. There's a lot of things that or the nation you come from, because there are plenty of white folks out there who also hate other white folks because of the country that they're from. And so nationality plays a big role. But there are a lot of things in the world, child abuse, sexual abuse, spousal abuse, and neglect of those who are weaker than us, abortions, bullying. All of these things are expressions of the devaluing of human life. When these things take place, the perpetrators of them show that they do not value their victims as highly as they value themselves. They do not value the life of humans. And so in Genesis 9, this is the chapter where we get the rainbow after the flood. God declares that he values all human life, and so should we. So there are two sections of Genesis chapter 9, verses 1 through 17, which is most of what we're going to read most of this together today. This is going to be the covenant with Noah. And then the second half, 18 through 29, demonstrate our continued inclination towards sin and God's merciful and gracious faithfulness to us, to humanity, in spite of it. So Moses was writing this narrative first for Israel, but then also it applies to us. Now, this was written while the Israelites were preparing to go into Canaan, into the promised land. And there's a lesson here for them for God's faithfulness as they are preparing to go into that promised land. So let's begin reading together, verse 1 through 15 of chapter 9. God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. The fear and terror of you will be in every living creature on the earth, every bird in the sky, every creature that crawls on the ground, and all of the fish of the sea. They are placed under your authority. Every creature that lives and moves will be food for you. As I gave the green plants, I have given you everything. However, you must not eat meat with its lifeblood in it, and I will require a penalty for your lifeblood. I will require it from any animal and from any human. If someone murders a fellow human, I will require that person's life. Whoever sheds human blood, by humans his blood will be shed, for God made humans in his image. But you be fruitful and multiply, spread out over the earth and multiply on it." Then God said to Noah and his sons with him, "Understand that I am establishing my covenant with you and your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you, birds, livestock, and all the wildlife of the earth that are with you, all the animals of the earth that came out of the ark. I establish my covenant with you that never again will every creature be wiped out by floodwaters. There will never again be a flood to destroy the earth." And God said, "This is the sign of the covenant that I am making between me and you and every living creature, with a covenant for all future generations. I have placed my bow in the clouds, and it will be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Whenever I form the clouds over the earth and the bow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant between me and you and all the creatures. Water will never again become a flood to destroy every creature." So this bow in verse 13 is, in fact, the rainbow. The rainbow points to God's promise after every rainstorm. When the clouds form, when the rain has dissipated, there is a rainbow, and we can remember that the rainbow is there as a picture and as a sign and as a symbol of God's mercy and his promise to the earth, not just to Noah, but to the earth, that there will never be again a flood that destroys the whole earth. So let's break this down some. We're going to look at the blessing. This is our first section. This is verses 1 through 4. Verse 1. God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. The fear and terror of you will be in every living creature on the earth, every bird of the sky, every creature that crawls on the ground, and all the fish of the sea. They are placed under your authority. Every creature that lives and moves will be food for you. As I gave the green plants, I have given you everything. However, you must not eat meat with its lifeblood in it." So, first off, we see the first commandment given to Noah and his sons immediately after they disembarked the ark, and it was to be fruitful and multiply. This is the same commandment that God gave Adam and Eve and all of creation in Genesis 1. However, the rest of the blessing here is a little bit different. Verses 2 and 3 say that no longer is creation living in harmony with man, but rather man is ruling it through fear and terror. Before this fall, there was no mention made of animals having a fear of humans. But now, this is why squirrels and smaller animals... I'm sorry if you heard that. My dog just decided to run into the door. She is special sometimes. Anyway, this is why wild animals flee from us. This is why they don't stick around whenever we're trying to, walk through the woods, or we see deer in our pastures and we walk out and they hear us and they run. This is why there's fear and terror for men in these animals. And so now we rule with that fear and terror. And then God says that every creature that lives and moves will be food for you, which is different. This is the first time a commandment from God says that it's okay to eat meat. Up until this point, humans were not commanded to eat meat. They were not given that authority up until this point, or at least at the beginning in creation. Mankind was vegetarian. We were herbivores. We were not omnivores. We did not eat meat. But in this, we see this condition in verse 4. However, you must not eat meat with its lifeblood in it. So why did God put special emphasis on the blood of these animals, of the lifeblood? Well, I think and I believe that is because we're supposed to be wise stewards. We're called to be good stewards of God's creation. And so if we are killing needlessly to eat, but we're not taking special precautions or special action with that destruction of life, because we know that everything that comes from meat requires an animal to die, or all meat requires an animal to die for us to eat it. And so God did put special emphasis on the blood of animals because he created them and he wants us to be good stewards of them. And so he puts this special instruction on it to make sure that we value life, not just life, human life, but all of God's creation. Now, he's going to say in a second that we should have respect for all human life above all else. Let's read together verses 5 through... Sorry, I got to get back to my spot. Verses 5 through 7. This is the warning. "And I will require a penalty for your lifeblood." So God is talking about now holding people accountable for the spilling of human blood. "I will require a penalty for your lifeblood. I will require it from any animal and from any human. If someone murders a fellow human, I will require that person's life. So this is before the law of Moses. This is before any Levitical law or Deuteronomical law. This is God's first law regarding murder. Um, we didn't need a law to tell us that murder was wrong. That was established even before the flood. This was established with Cain and Abel, as we read several weeks ago. But God is holding people accountable for their actions and for their sin because, verse 6, whoever sheds human blood by humans, his blood will be shed, for God made humans in his image. Here's why God values human life, because they were made in his image, and they were the only thing made in his image. Notice in this provision here in verses 5 through 7 that God doesn't say anything about requiring anything for the shedding of animal blood. He just doesn't want us to eat animal blood or eat meat with the lifeblood still in it. And then he again reiterates his command in verse 1, but you be fruitful and multiply, spread out over the earth and multiply on it. So why does being made in God's image place a different value on human life? Well, we were the only creation. Adam and Eve were the only part of creation where God stooped low and handcrafted it. Up until this point, he had just spoke it into existence. Here, with humans, he crafted us in his image. He gave us a mind. He gave us a soul. He gave us a spirit, one that reflects his own, one that is creative, not destructive, or has the potential for destruction. One that is intelligent and not primitive. One that is sapient in nature and is able to think and reason and have thoughts of its own. So God is also saying that to attack human life is to attack himself, because we are made in his image. His image within humanity is sacred and must be respected as such. To take the life of another is to usurp the authority that belongs to God alone. God is the only one with the authority to remove human life from the earth. When we devalue human life, when we kill another person or we wish another was dead, we take that authority from God and usurp him and usurp his authority. And so, how should we respond to attacks on the sanctity of human life? How should we respond to the idea that human life is not sacred, human life is expendable, human life is disposable? Well, we have to understand that human life is important to God, and because it's important to God, it should be important to us. So anything that would infringe upon that, we as Christians ought to stand up against it. That means that capital punishment is a hard topic, because a lot of us, especially being in Texas and being in the South, we believe that that there should be a consequence for the murder of another human, or the capital a capital punishment for a capital offense. But this deserves thoughtful consideration and grace with the thoughts of regarding the families of the victims and the justice that needs to be served. This is not something that we can cover, you and I, today. Number one, I'm not a law expert. Number two, I am not an expert on all things of God's law either. So ultimately, God's focusing more on life rather than death. He's not focusing on the murder, he's focusing on the life. He returned to the command to be fruitful and multiply there in verse 7, spread out over the earth and multiply on it. After God delivered Noah and his family, God made a special promise, and we're going to see that now in this covenant, verses 8 through 15. Then God said to Noah and his sons with him, understand that I am establishing my covenant with you. A covenant, we've talked about this with Kids Praise recently. A covenant is an unbreakable, unconditional promise. So he's establishing this covenant with Noah and his sons and your descendants after you, so their sons and their grandsons, and with every living creature that is with you, birds, livestock, and all the wildlife of the earth that are with you, and all the animals of the earth that came out of the ark. I establish my covenant with you that never again will every creature be wiped out by floodwaters. There will never again be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is the sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature with you, a covenant for all future generations. I have placed my bow, the rainbow, in the clouds, and it will be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Whenever I form clouds over the earth, and the bow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant between me and you and all the living creatures. Water will never again become a flood to destroy every creature. So we answered this question already. What is a covenant? Well, a covenant is an unbreakable, unconditional promise. It is a contract or agreement between us and God, between two parties, between you and your spouse, between God and us. Ancient covenants set down rules for how a stronger person or a group would treat a lesser person in a group. In the Bible, God makes promises with his people as a promise of his blessings and protection. So how does God's promise to preserve life and not flood the earth completely again impact the way that we should treat each other and respect all human life? Well, God was grieved by the destruction. That doesn't mean he regretted it, because God doesn't regret things he does, but he did see the destruction, and he was grieved of it. He was grieved of the death of his creation, grieved by the death of his creation. And so when we see that he is now promising to preserve life rather than promising to destroy life, that should impact us to do the same. We shouldn't jump to the ultimate consequence whenever it comes to legal arguments. We shouldn't jump to anger as quickly, and the death of humans should be something that grieves us deeply as well. When we read in the news about a large number of people or a small number of people dying in these terrorist attacks in the Middle East, when we read about the way human life is regarded in the wars in Ukraine and Israel right now, and the way it is just savagely taken and dealt with right now, that should grieve us, brothers and sisters, because it grieves the Lord, because the Lord sees that all human life, even those who are reckless with it, or straight up disrespectful of it, that they are also created in his image. And so we need to very strongly consider our stance on the sanctity of human life. Luckily, Southern Baptists are some of the most committed when it comes to fighting for the rights of the unborn and fighting for the rights of those who are oppressed and those who are marginalized. And we should be in that fight as well when it comes to valuing human life, not just while it's in the womb, not just after it's out of the womb, but in all walks and times and time periods of life. We should value human life because God values you. I hope this is an encouragement to you that God is not going to destroy the world with a flood again, and that you will remember that promise whenever you see a rainbow in the sky. And I hope you will take careful consideration for your thoughts, your views on the sanctity of human life, and that your views will line up to match the Lord's. Thank you for being with me. I look forward to worshiping with you very soon.